Don't forget, you can reach the latest episode of Potomac Watch anytime. Just ask your smart speaker, play the Opinion Potomac Watch podcast.
From the opinion pages of the Wall Street Journal, this is Potomac Watch.
Welcome back. 19 Republicans on Wednesday voted against Speaker Mike Johnson and blocked a bill to reauthorize Section 702 surveillance under the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act from coming to the Florida debate. But on Friday, Speaker Johnson had managed to flip that, and this bill has now passed with a 273 to 147 bipartisan majority. 88 Republicans, however, voting no. One piece of the debate on Friday was whether to add a warrant requirement to any searches of this database of foreign communications that may impinge on U.S. persons, and that amendment failed 212 to 212. Let's listen to the piece of the debate on this. First, here is Congressman Jim Jordan, and then Dan Crenshaw.
This is Second Amendment in a row where they're going to expand FISA. Can't have a warrant for the existing program. No, can't. This giant haystack of information can't have a warrant when you go search American citizens there. But now they want to expand it and tell us you still can't have a warrant. Holy cow. Pretty soon this is going to be everybody gets to get searched for any darn reason they want. That's not how it works in America. At least not how it's supposed to work.
Never before have I actually been frightened about what could happen if FISA is not reauthorized or this warrant amendment is passed, which effectively kills our ability to detect and connect the dots between foreign terrorists and what they might do here domestically. I have never been more concerned. I spent the last 20 years of my life fighting for this country, Austin and I doing it. And I don't think we actually disagree very much on principle. There's always a balance between civil liberties, privacy, and security. I don't think me and my colleagues are very far apart on that.
Kim, what do you make of this reauthorization by the House, which is now going over to the Senate? It does shorten the period of reauthorization from 2 years, whereas the bill that failed on Wednesday would have been 5 years. But am I wrong in thinking that this is more or less the proposal that these 19 Republicans derailed earlier this week?
It is, as you said, the kind of covering change that Johnson decided to make in the end, that they all agreed to kind of hide behind, was the fact that it was shortened. And also that there was a vote on some of these amendments, which they wanted to see happen. Now, they lost the main one that they wanted, and that is what inspired a number of Republicans to vote against the bill in the end. But the holdup here was that they needed to go through a procedural vote to get it to the floor. It is not customary for the minority party to help in that. And with such a small majority at the moment, Johnson couldn't really lose anyone. So he struggled with that. Look, I think the dynamic that changed here, and I think people need to give some credit to Speaker Johnson for this, is he's headed to Florida to have a discussion and an event with Donald Trump. It would appear that he sort of got Donald Trump's tacit kind of agreement that this was a compromise that would work. People seem to maybe take their cue from that. That's what managed to get on the floor. Look, I believe that Donald Trump's team, his campaign, has belatedly come to realize that this is not helpful to them, having a House majority that is constantly in disarray, and it looks like it can't get anything done. Not exactly an advertisement as you are headed into an election and you are saying, hey, yeah, also give us control of the presidency and the Senate. Just don't pay attention to the fact that we're in constant turmoil in the House. So these victories, there does seem to be suddenly some awareness at the top of the party that maybe Donald Trump needs to be doing something other than just tweeting out that, kill the FISA bill. And that seems to have helped focus a few minds.
But I'm hard-pressed to see any sort of strategic rationale for President Trump's intervention in this FISA proposal this week. Just to repeat what he put on Truth Social, he said, "Kill FISA. It was illegally used against me and many others. They spied on my campaign." And in the wake of the defeat in the House of this bill initially, people were pointing toward many things, one of which was this tweet by Donald Trump on January 19, 2018, in which he said, "Just signed 702 bill to reauthorize foreign intelligence collection. This is not the same FISA law that was so wrongly abused during the election. I will always do the right thing for our country and put the safety of the American people first." And so, Donald Trump decided to wade into this. I can only imagine helped induce some of those 19 Republicans to block this bill on Wednesday. And it seems to me it was really without a strategy. And if he went back in time only a few years, he could remember that he also signed a 702 reauthorization, arguing that this was needed in order to root out terrorist plots and so forth. And meantime, you had the FBI director up on Capitol Hill this week, and here is part of what he said. As I look back over my career in law enforcement, I would be hard-pressed to think of a time where so many threats to our public safety and national security were so elevated all at once, unquote.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely do think that in the way that Kim was describing, President Trump is still making up his mind about the role that he wants to play in the House Republicans' many votes. Basically, I think you saw very recently that he opined on whether or not they should pass a compromise bill that included border funding. And obviously, he very much opposed that deal. And he enjoys showing that he has influence over these members. But at the same time, I do think that Kim is exactly right in saying that he understands that the disarray has gotten to an unsustainable level and doesn't want the caucus to be that divided going into November because they're all going to be on the same ballot together. And he understands that the prospects of the Republican Party at large do have some connection to his ability to win and, in theory, his ability to govern. I do think that the Republican Party at large, and Donald Trump in particular, are genuinely divided and trying to make up their minds about what they think about the intelligence community and the authorities that it should have. But it was helpful to have Christopher Wray testify and to have Merrick Garland calling members, informing them and reminding them of how important these authorities actually are, the ability to surveil these foreign threats. I think a lot of Americans have taken for granted the amount of progress that we've made over the past couple of decades in terms of eliminating some of these domestic threats. And a lot of that comes from the ability when we do identify foreign individuals who are involved in terror planning and conspiracies that we've given broad power to the FBI to be able to track that. Certainly, Americans will sometimes be dragged into that net when they're going through the call records and trying to trace the connections. But I think in the way that Dan Crenshaw was suggesting on that clip, that's a trade-off that makes a lot of sense in terms of giving these investigators the ability to actually track these threats to their root. And when it is misused, that often does eventually come into the light, and hopefully the people who are responsible for those abuses end up being punished. But it is clear that this bill also does include a provision that is going to limit the number of FBI agents who have the authority to conduct these sorts of searches in the first place, and other tweaks that are meant to address some of the concerns of the civil libertarian skeptics. And so it does make sense that ultimately House Republicans, not a majority of them, but a large enough group got on board and decided to reauthorize this at a shorter time frame. And hopefully, as the debate continues, you'll see more of them continue to coalesce around the idea that these authorities are important, and we can continue to fine-tune it to make sure that the abuses can be curtailed as well.
Thank you, Monet and Kim. Thank you all for listening. You can email us at pwpodcast@wsj.com. If you like the show, please hit that subscribe button, and we'll be back next week with another edition of Potomac Watch.